One last topic I want to touch on in this module is the concept of multi-bindings and priority bindings. A multi-binding is a special kind of binding in WPF that allows you to provide a collection of bindings inside the multi-binding. It's basically going to evaluate each one of those bindings and come up with a value, and then you combine this multi-binding with a multi-value converter, an object that you implement this interface on, similar to the converters we covered earlier in the module. But this multi-value converter is going to get passed an array of values. The array is going to be populated with the values that came out of each one of the child bindings in the multi-binding, and then the converter can do with those values what it pleases. So one example would be if you were going to create a color picker and have a separate slider for the red, the green, and the blue values, you could use a multi-binding in combination with a multi-value converter to come up with a color object based on those red, green, and blue inputs. So basically the net result of a multi-binding is to come up with a single value based on the individual values of the child bindings. The other kind of binding is called a priority binding, and it's somewhat similar in that it can contain a collection of child bindings, but what the priority binding is going to do is pick a value from one of those. And the priority is the first one declared as the highest priority one. And the idea is that even though you have a binding there, it may not be able to come up with a value. It could be that it's using async and it's waiting for an async result that hasn't come back yet. Or it could be that it's pointing to a path that may or may not be there in the data context that varies over time. So the priority binding is going to produce a single value based on whichever highest priority binding has an available value. Now, I'm not even going to do a demo of these because generally in many years of doing WPF development, I've never used either one of these. And the reason for that is I don't like the fact that they really are putting logic in the XAML itself. They are a little difficult to debug as a result. If you are not getting exactly what you want, there's nowhere you can set a breakpoint and see what's going on. And it's also too much coupling in the view. Generally, the alternative is to go produce a single value behind the scenes and put it into a source object property and just use normal binding. And then all the code that produces that value is debuggable, and you can structure it however you want to use priorities or to go to multiple sources and figure out which one to use, or to go to multiple sources and combine the values of those multiple sources. But then you can just use a normal binding and point to your source object that you populate however you want.